Hi, this is Michael Jones, Chairman and CEO of Caravel Concepts. Welcome to Market Insights, our weekly commentary on financial markets and economic conditions. Let's get started. So, the last few weeks have seen good news on probably the most important thing impacting the global economy, COVID-19. We've had a new vaccine approved. And because elderly people are getting vaccinated at increasing rates, we've seen hospitalizations, and ultimately we're going to see deaths plummet, which is all fantastic news. President Biden has announced that thanks to this new third vaccine, we are going to have enough vaccines for every adult American to get a shot in the arm and a vaccination against COVID-19 by the end of May. Fantastic. But it also creates a question. Which vaccine should I get? And we want to talk through the issues that are raised with the different vaccines that are available and convince you that the vaccine you want is whatever vaccine you are offered. Because as soon as most people get a vaccination, the world can go back to normal. Japan will welcome Americans again, and my wife and I can go see our daughter. So, if for no one else, for us, get any vaccination available. Now, you may say, well, wait a minute now. The Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, they got a 95. They got an efficacy rate against COVID of 95. That's an A. I like A's. Meanwhile, the J&J vaccine got a grade of 66. That's like a D. For some grading scales, that's an F. I don't want an F vaccine. I want an A vaccine. And in reality, though, those numbers are apples and oranges. And when you actually put things on an even scale, pretty much so, all the vaccines appear to be equally effective. Now, how can that be when one has a 95 and one has a 66? Well, the answer is that those vaccines were tested in very different times. The Pfizer and Moderna were tested back in the summer and in very different places. The J&J vaccine was not only tested late fall, which is much later than the Moderna and the Pfizer, also its testing had a very heavy sample from South Africa and Brazil. Why does that matter? Why does that time gap matter? And why does that geographic difference matter? Because the J&J vaccine was tested once new variants of COVID-19 had emerged. And these new variants, particularly the variants in Brazil and South Africa, which was a big part of the J&J study, these new variants are as much as 10 times better at evading your body's antibodies and your natural defense systems as the original COVID virus. Imagine if you were in the market for a new car and car one said, oh, we've tested our car at 40 miles per hour and it will protect 95% of the occupants from any injury and 100% pretty close to from death. That sounds pretty safe. Car 2, we've tested our car at a 50 mile per hour crash and it protects 66% of the occupants from injury and close to 100% from certain death. Which of those two cars is safer? Well, you don't really know. One was tested at 40 miles per hour, one was at 50. It didn't protect quite as many passengers, but it had a much more severe, much more difficult test. That's essentially what happened with the J&J vaccine. It was tested against a much tougher, much more difficult to counter variant of the COVID-19 vaccine. And the fantastic, amazing news that came out of that is that it is 66% effective against you getting sick, but it's close to 100% effective against you dying. And if we test the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines against these new variants, what will we discover? Well, we don't know whether it'll be 70% effective or 60%, whether it'll be a little better than the J&J or a little worse. Early signs are, though, that the Pfizer and Moderna, like the J&J, are close to 100% effective even against these new variants from actually causing people to die, which once people are vaccinated with any of these vaccines, if you take the very severe risk of death that is currently a part of this illness, if you take that off the table, if you make it more like the common cold, if you make it more like the flu, then we can get back to normal. And all three of these vaccines offer that hope, which means if you get an opportunity to get a vaccine, don't ask which one. Just get stuck with that needle. And if it turns out to be the J&J, you win the lottery because it means you don't have to come back and get another stick because it's a one-dose vaccine. Thank you for joining us for Market Insights. We hope you found it informative. If you did enjoy the video, please like it and share it with your friends. Also, if you'd like more of our research, you can find it by subscribing at the link below or checking out our website, caravelconcepts.com. Thanks.